And you said that you were battling depression, right? Now, we don't have to spend too much time on it, but I believe that's another thing, like I said just now, is that we all find ourselves in that space where we're just battling depression in ourselves and our thoughts. So if you could just piggyback on that, how did you realize that you were battling depression and what did you do to get up out of it?
And thirdly, how important is mental health when it comes to, the creative side of things?
Okay. So I would say first, like I said, I didn't know. Now, all I did know is that there were certain things that was triggering me. Like I had my first professional job that I had a racist manager, and that was very difficult because at that time it was like I wasn't looking at it from that perspective until like a few years later, and reflecting like, oh, she was being racist towards me. But in the moment I was dealing with that, I had just graduated high school like a year prior, so I had trauma from high school that I experienced. And then I also was going to school full time. I was working a part-time job. So all of that happening all at one time, I wasn't focused on my mental health, and I didn't really take it into consideration because no one is really talking about that, or
especially in the Black community.
Exactly. So at that time, it just wasn't something that was important for me. However, I was always someone who looked at the glass as half full, regardless of my situation. When I was working at that time, when I was working at my full-time job with that manager, I literally was coming home crying every single day. Like legit, Monday through Friday, I would come home, cry. And then I had class as well. I was working a part-time job and going to school, and it's just like, it was so tough, but I'm not associating that like with just, depression. Like who thinks like, okay, like it's like, how do you get that? Like, cause I didn't know. Yeah. And then it wasn't up until like years later, I want to say, maybe like 2018, I was like, maybe I should. And one of my coworkers who is a really, really great dear friend of mine who has become like a sister, she was like, you should see my therapist. She's like really cool. Like, you will love her. And one thing about therapy that I had learned at that time is that you should find a therapist that looks like you.
Correct.
Because if not, then you are going to be talking to someone that is unbiased, but is unbiased to even your own experience in life.
There's like no connection there.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like what I've experienced. How can I share that with someone who doesn't look like me? Because what I'm going to share is part of the Black experience. Yeah. And if you don't know what that is, then there's not much that you can do to help me. And so once I started therapy, I was like, the first conversation that I had, like the initial conversation, she was just like, yeah, so like, just tell me about yourself. And I'm like, oh, I don't really know where to start. So she was like, okay, like, let's just start with your family. And so I was like, okay. So we started talking about like family dynamics. And so I went into that, and it ultimately led me to gaining a lot of insight and wisdom on how to maintain relationships, but also understanding the importance of boundaries. And at that time, I had no idea that I should be focusing on boundaries. But boundaries is a really big thing when we think about mental health, which for me, mental health is so important because your creativity in relation to mental health is so important because you, as the creative, you have obviously worldly experiences that you're going through. And so if you're feeling clouded, like how I was feeling last year, for example, that was a pivotal time. And it was very like, I felt like it was like a why now moment because few months right before that, in January, I released my first YouTube video.
Wow.
So I released, right. So I was like on a high. I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like, I have my YouTube channel. I have a vision of how I see me doing like different like vlogs and stuff like that. We had also released a podcast around that time. Okay. So I was like really like hyped. Like, I'm like, oh God, like you're putting me on the path now. Great. And then it was like, no, now you're foggy. And I'm like, wait, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And so with that being said, I could not move. I couldn't physically move to like edit. I would get content, but I wouldn't be able to actually edit it.
You getting creative block.
Yes. Having that creator's block literally is what kept a hold of me. But that creator's block is the mental health aspect of it, where if you're not in the space, in the headspace to be able to be creative and allow your creativity flow, it won't be able to flow. And that even goes down to like later on in the year last year, I would say around this time last year, I had released my newsletters. I think I had at this time probably like 2 or 3 newsletters. And then it became like everything just felt overwhelming. Like I just felt like life was overwhelming. I just couldn't really handle it. And so I developed anxiety. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, how? And then I realized with like family things, you know, my dad had got sick. I'm like trying to figure out like, you know, what should I be doing? I'm also looking at the world and listening to what the world is saying, like, oh, just do it, just do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying, but what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So like that mental health piece to your creativity, it really makes a world of a difference. And if you don't have any sense of clarity or a sense of peace, you're not going to be able to produce what it is that really just comes naturally. Now, granted, there are some people who can create while like under pressure and while they're going through things, which I think is so beautiful, because if you can push through that, that's just like a testament to your ability to be disciplined and having grit and really just like working hard. But not to say to the person that's like myself where I just can't, like, you know, everyone's different. And I think that part is what also separates us all as humans, but also separates us all as creatives, because what I can create while I'm like not under pressure, maybe you can't create it, but you probably create it while you're under pressure.
Correct.
And so I think when you also look at the 3 of us, we're all creative in our own way. We all have different experiences. We can all be going through something. However, there's beauty in whatever it is that we do create. And then also there's beauty in connection, community, which I think that is what I love about the Creators Edition and why we are even starting it, because community is so important, especially when we think about like mental health too, because when you are able to have a conversation with someone, look at them and just be like, okay, you're a human just like I am. I know that you're going through things, and just be like, hey, like, what's up? Like, you know, you could literally let me talk and just let me like decompress. That could have been like the best thing for me for that day. And that could ultimately help me produce something that's super creative. Whereas if I didn't have that human interaction, if I didn't have the community to go to, I probably would have clammed up, and then whatever the talents and the gifts that God has given me, it would have just been inside.
Yeah.
So yeah.